So I'm Stu, I'm the General Manager at the bike shed. This is my staff bike. Might not be what the rest of the custom bikes here look like, but it's mine, I ride it every day. I'm going to talk a bit more about what I do with it than necessarily what's been done to it. So I guess Mark, one of the events managers here at the Bike Shed in Shoreditch, as a fellow dirt bike enthusiast, off-road rider, probably a lot better at than I am actually. We're just going to have a little bit of a talk through a few of the things that I've done to my bike, but I guess a little bit perhaps more about, like I said, where it's been, what I've done with it, the kind of things we both like to do out on dirt with big bikes and small bikes. Like I said, this bike has not got that much in the way of customization to it, I guess. It's pretty standard, right? I mean,
apart from the stickers.
Yeah, some really nice stickers.
Is there anything you have done to it?
A few little add-ons. I mean, aftermarket seat, just a single bench seat is a little bit easier for getting around the bike when you're off-road. Big old alt-rider bash plate at the bottom there, just a lot more robust and it's been put through its paces, to be honest. Just, you know, the BMW one, when we held them up together, when I put it on, and the BMW one sort of, it's like that, and it just about protects the bottom of the engine, whereas that really quite thoroughly covers it all.
Yeah, you're not going to get any stones through that.
No, for sure, and didn't as well. Have tried very hard and haven't managed to. Some risers, I know they're a bit divisive. Some people sort of say you shouldn't put them on. The bars are where they're meant to be. The bikes, you know, it will change the way the bike handles. But for me, I mean,
I need them as well, though.
Yeah.
I think taller riders do.
Mate, I mean, some people out there say that, you know, you don't need to stand. You know, if you're up too tall, then you're not weight in the front of the bike. But I mean, especially for sort of, you know, long distance travel adventure kind of stuff, I don't know, they're a winner for me. I love it with them on. I mean, the bars are a bit more inclined back at the minute because I'm riding around on the road, but
yeah. But if you're off-road and you're a taller rider, you need to stand up, and if you stood up and you're tall,
yeah, for sure. And that, like I said, for me, it's about what works for the rider, and I like them, so that's how I roll with it, you know. Yeah, I mean, beyond that, I mean, I've got the shorter screen on actually. Just for me, I mean, when I'm on the bike, you get that kind of wind blast right under the peak of the helmet. So actually putting the shorter screen on works better for me. You know, you get the blast in your chest, but then you know, it's that much more comfortable when you're on it out all day. Yeah. You know, beyond that, that's it. It's a stock GS.
Is there any more you want to do to it?
I'll tell you what. The one thing, if there was a high front mudguard, I'd put one on. So I mean, I rode this from Alaska to Argentina, as you know, and literally we did 35,000 miles, and there was one time when this bike couldn't make it through what it was thrown at, and it was because we were scooping up clay and rock and mud, and it was just packing up underneath that front mudguard.
It's quite close, isn't it?
Yeah, there's like, I mean, an inch perhaps there at best.
Yeah.
And there was no getting through it. It was literally clogged up. So I'd put a high front mudguard on this. If there was one out there that kind of worked, I'd probably stick it on. Yeah. I've not seen one out there. So, you know, you make do. But in 35,000 miles and 17 countries, I think we did, that's not bad really for one episode to not be able to get through.
That's a hell of a trip.
Yeah, it's what got me here actually. It was, I mean, literally I was away, when this place opened, I was riding this bike from Alaska to Argentina.
So tell me more about that moment, that decision. Where were you in your lives, and what were you doing, and why did you all of a sudden decide to drop everything and go on a 35,000 mile?
Do you know what?
Trip?
So this sounds really a bit ridiculous. We were actually in New Zealand on another bike trip. Seriously, we were in Wellington. We're in Wellington in New Zealand, looking at, you know, hostels with giant maps all over the place, and we were just looking at a map and going, you can really easily like ride from Alaska to Argentina. And we sort of said, all right, let's do it. And that was kind of it. So yeah, so we basically, beginning of 2015, flew the bikes from London to Atlanta. So we were going to go from Alaska to Argentina, but we said, do you know what, we should just ride across rather than fly over all of America basically. Let's fly to Atlanta. My sister lives in Atlanta, so it was a good place to start.
Okay, cool, yeah.
And I'd have got really told off if I didn't go and visit her on this trip.
So all that way.
And we had like a week in Atlanta just to kind of get all the kit bolted on the bikes and get ourselves really set to head off. And then, so we decided to ride to Alaska rather than fly there. So we set off from Atlanta, rode straight across Middle America.
Which is a feat in itself, surviving that,
yeah,
right?
Do you know what I mean? That's like, yeah, surviving that. I mean, it's a trip that a lot of people do just all on its own. Yeah. We just decided we'd tack that onto the trip.
The whole like Route 66 thing.
Well, we didn't do Route 66.
Really popular,
I'll tell you what, we stuck a bit further south because it was still early in the year, so we wanted to keep some of the warmer weather. Right. And we literally rode straight through Middle America, through Missouri and Kansas and all that, and got to Colorado, did Pikes Peak, You know,
wow.
we got to ride this up
Nice.
Pikes Peak, which is pretty cool. And then we just followed the Rocky Mountains all the way north,
Yeah.
through Montana, you know, Wyoming, Montana, just spectacular stuff.
Yeah,
Up as far as Washington, went and hung out with the alt-rider guys because that's where they're based, up in Seattle. And then we said, right, okay, well, let's hop over to Canada and we'll just ride up through Canada as if it's nothing, and all the way up through Alaska, up the Dalton Highway. And I think we added 7,000 miles to the trip by doing that. Wow. So then we got to the top of it. Oh, mate, worth every second. You know, I mean, squared off a few tires on the American roads. But, you know, and again, that's where this was so good for that, because, you know, you take a lighter, sort of more dirt-focused bike, and that trip across Middle America would have been painful.
Yeah, very much so.
Whereas we were able to sort of gun it across a little bit in relative comfort, better cruise control when you want it, you know. Yeah. And then we got to the very top of Alaska, and then we turned around, and then we rode from there all the way down to Ushuaia at the bottom of Argentina.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, in 11 months altogether, we did 35,000 miles, and absolutely covered all kinds of terrain. You know, it was snowy up north, obviously across the middle of America, down the roads, you know, down the Route 1, down the, you know, LA coast and all that kind of stuff was just brilliant. You do that on anything and absolutely beaming from ear to ear. Down into Baja, we had a week in Baja on proper dirt tires and just got to rip it around. And then, you know, through Central America, South America, down to the bottom of Ocean. So you name it, terrain-wise, we encountered it.
Fantastic.
And the bike stood up to it.
So 35,000 mile trip, you must have some amazing stories to tell the grandkids.
Oh mate, dozens, more than I could possibly count. Yeah. Honestly, the best things are when it goes a bit wrong.
Yeah.
Everyone will tell you that. Anyone that's travelled or adventured or anything like that, it's when it doesn't go according to plan that the magic happens, if you like.
Yeah.
You know, and we didn't have a plan anyway, to be honest. We literally, one of the reasons we chose that route was because you could get every visa you need at the border. You don't need any real bike import and export papers. There's no carnet, there's nothing like that. So it was actually really quite easy to wing it and just decide, you know, I think in the entire trip, there were 3 dates that we had to hit. One of those was getting out of America, because they're pretty strict on the old visa rules over there. One of them was getting the yacht, so we put the bikes on deck of a yacht, where you just winch the bikes up on deck over the open sea. You know, your bike is suspended by a couple of ropes over open water, and they just plonk it down
Sphincter
on deck.
puckering moment there.
Mate, everyone was just kind of like that, like absolutely holding their breath. We had to hit that date, because otherwise they sail without you. And then the flight home at the end. That was it. Apart from that, no dates that we had to stick to.
Amazing.
So
I'll be picking your brains about the route then. Really inspiring. It's inspired me. I think I'll do that trip for my 50th. But you know, there's loads of people watching who maybe have only ridden around, you know, town or whatever, commuted to work, short trips, maybe do the odd bit at the weekend. And a lot of them are going to be inspired by this, or have been wanting to do their own trip and thinking about it and planning for ages. But, you know, what would be, if you could give them some advice, what would they be?
Do you know what? There's so many reasons that you could come up with to not go ahead and do a trip like this, or a smaller trip or anything. The first thing is getting rid of all of that and just deciding that you're going to do it. And when Will and I decided we were going to do this one, the first thing we did was book flights. So I think it was October, and we booked flights for the early part of the year. Ultimately committing to a date and saying, right, we're working to that. That's how we're going to do this. Yeah. The bike, honestly, mate, you can do it on anything. You know, I love this bike. I ride it every day, and I'm happy on this bike. But you could literally do any trip on any bike. I would absolutely stand by that. Yeah. This happens to be the bike that I chose to do it on. I thought it was brilliant for it. I would probably do it on the same bike again. But don't let that hold you up either.
Yeah, I mean, the lowest price went round on a TTR 125 or something, didn't she? So,
mate, look at people like Ed March doing it on C90s.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? There are people out there that can demonstrate. You can do it on anything. Yeah. So don't let that hold you up either. You know, I mean, I guess, you know, being open about it, we spent quite a bit of money doing this trip. You know, we flew the bikes over. We could have shipped them over. We weren't lavish at all. We camped an awful lot of the time. We stayed in cheap hostels, cheap hotels when we needed to. You know, but you could do this on a much smaller budget. So, you know, I tell you what, one of the biggest things we did. I mean, I've been going down to the off-road skills with BMW, Cy Pavey's place for, I think I first went down there in about 2010 or so. That's where I learned to ride off-road. Yeah. And I mean, no two ways about it. I mean, there's stats out there, but it's something like 5% of the world's roads are paved. The rest of them aren't. Yeah. If you can't ride off the tarmac, you need to figure out how to do so. That is absolutely just worth every minute you spend doing it for me, and was transformational. You know, it does. You come back, when you ride on the road, you ride in a different way. you know, you read things differently, you spend less time worrying about what you're doing with the bike, and you've got a lot more time to pay attention to what's going on the road around you. That for me is a really big one.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're taking a big bike. I mean, not everyone needs to do it on a big bike, like we said. If you're taking a big, heavy bike, panniers, luggage, all that kind of kit on it, you need to be up to task when it comes to handling it and getting it around. And so schools like those are just, I think they're brilliant. The only reason not to do a trip like that is really because you haven't made the decision to actually do it.
Yeah.
You know, there's always a better time. You can always put it off. You can always delay. You can always wait for the time to be right.
Never is though.
But there's no such thing really. You know, if you
time.
hit the numbers on the lottery or something like that, yeah, fair dues. You know, but the rest of the time, you know, if you want to do it, you'll save the money. You'll do whatever you need to do to get yourself there financially.
Yeah.
The bike, you can do it on anything. You know, really the one thing is making the decision to actually do it.
Yeah.
You know?
So commitment, learning to ride off road. What would be the third golden rule?
Well, do you know what?
Top of your head.
Do you know what? Perhaps this isn't a golden rule, and I'm getting a little bit off the thing here, but I was lucky that I had a good mate who was in the same position as me and wanted to go and do it. But I met probably at least a dozen people that were doing the same trip as we were, solo, entirely solo.
Yeah.
You know, no financing behind them, nothing like that, who just decided they were going to get on and do it. Youngest lad was a guy who was 23, Canadian, who was doing the same trip that we were. You know, the oldest guy was a former American policeman, Rennie. His name was 71 years old. Yeah. Doing it on his KLR 650. Wow. You know, all on his own, just and nailing it. You know, there's absolutely anybody's capable of doing it.
Yeah. So procrastination is a killer of all adventure.
Yeah, I tell you.
Just get on and do it.
You know, and people are worried about things like careers and jobs and stuff. And yeah, of course, we all need a bit of financial security. But at the same time, there are jobs when you come back.
Yeah.
Look at this. You know, I came back to this.
So you came back to this.
Yeah. So that couldn't have gone better for me.
Yeah.
But just believing that actually, do you know what? You don't need to let that hold you back.
Amazing trip. Sounds incredible. Have you got it out your system?
No chance. No.
So there's more in the pipeline.
Oh, mate, yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, people say it was a once-in-a-lifetime trip, and it absolutely wasn't. It's the biggest trip I've ever done, for sure. And I guess you'd be hard-pressed to find a trip that's more than 35,000 miles unless you just keep going around the world. But no way, this is definitely not done. Yeah. You know, might have to break the news to Vicky and Dutch at some point. But no, do you know what? Actually, it's one of the first things we discussed when I joined the bike shed. You know, I'd just come back from the trip and the guys had seen all the pictures that I'd been posting and that kind of thing, and they kind of alluded to the fact that it might be something that I might bring up in the future. Absolutely, and I mean, to be honest, whether I did it on a GS like this again or on a smaller, lighter bike, do you know what I mean? That's so, you need to enjoy it on the bike that you're on, of course you do.
The bike that you love.
But you know, and if you're in love with that bike and you get off it every single day and you just look forward to getting back on it the next morning, then it's the right bike. Yeah. You know, and that can be absolutely anything. Okay, so that's my staff bike. A bit different to the usual bike shed cafe racer custom, but hopefully someone's found something a little bit inspiring in that. Having said it doesn't matter what bike you do it on, here's a quick look at the next one.